You don't destroy your life by accident. You participate in it, quietly, intentionally, almost lovingly. And the most disturbing part is this: somewhere deep inside, you know exactly what you're doing, and you refuse to stop. There is a moment, always a moment, when you could have chosen differently. You felt it, a flicker, a hesitation, a voice that didn't shout, but whispered. And yet, you moved forward anyway, as if guided by something older than reason. Not ignorance, not weakness. Something stranger. Something darker. You call it a mistake. You call it bad luck. But that is a lie you tell yourself to sleep at night. Because if it were truly an accident, you wouldn't repeat it. But you do. Again, and again, and again. You sabotage what you build. You withdraw when things begin to matter. You ruin the things you once prayed for. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, methodically, like someone who understands exactly how to dismantle their own life without anyone noticing. And the question lingers, uninvited, unwelcome. Why? Why do you hurt yourself in ways no one else ever could? Dostoevsky knew this question intimately, not as an observer, but as a man who lived inside it. Not as a philosopher sitting safely above human contradiction, but as someone who felt the pull of destruction from within. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't try to explain it away. He stared at it. He let it breathe. In Notes from Underground, he gives us a man who is painfully aware of his own self-sabotage, and yet continues anyway. A man who rejects logic, rejects happiness, rejects even the possibility of peace, not because he cannot have it, but because he refuses it. And if you are honest, you recognize something of yourself in him. Not the extreme version, not the caricature, but the quiet pattern, the subtle resistance, the small, almost invisible acts of defiance against your own well-being. You say you want to be better. You say you want to change. But when the moment comes, the real moment, not the imagined one, you hesitate. You delay. You choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar peace. Because peace feels suspicious. Because happiness feels like a trap. Because control, real control, terrifies you. You think you want freedom, but what you really want is to remain exactly where you are, while convincing yourself that you are trying to escape. This is the paradox. You suffer, and yet you cling to the very conditions that create your suffering. You complain about the cage, but you hold the key and refuse to use it. Why? Because to leave the cage would mean facing something far more frightening than suffering: responsibility. You see, as long as you are trapped, you are innocent. As long as your life is falling apart, you can blame circumstances. You can blame other people. You can blame your past. You can say, "This is not my fault." But the moment you step out, the moment you choose differently, the moment you take control, there is no one left to blame, and that is unbearable. So you hesitate. You create complications where none exist. You overthink simple decisions until they collapse under their own weight. You tell yourself you're being careful, thoughtful, strategic, but in reality, you are avoiding the one thing that would actually change your life. Action. Real action. Not the kind you fantasize about, not the kind you talk about, the kind that forces you to confront yourself without excuses. And you resist it. Not because you are lazy, but because you are afraid of what you might discover if you succeed. Imagine this. You finally get what you've always wanted. The relationship works. The opportunity unfolds. The life begins to stabilize. There is no chaos, no crisis, no drama, just calm, just possibility. And suddenly, something feels wrong. You feel restless, irritated, suspicious. You begin to question everything. You look for flaws. You create distance. You pull away, not because something is broken, but because something is finally working. And that terrifies you. Because if things are good, if things are stable, then you are exposed. There is no longer anything to hide behind, no distraction, no excuse, no chaos to mask the deeper question, who are you when you are not struggling? Dostoevsky understood this. The underground man rejects happiness not because he cannot achieve it, but because it threatens his identity. His suffering is not just a condition, it is a foundation. It gives him something to push against. It gives him a sense of control. Because suffering, in its own twisted way, is predictable. It is familiar. It is safe. You know how to suffer. You know the rules. You know the patterns. You know the outcome. But happiness? Happiness is uncertain. It demands vulnerability. It demands trust. It demands that you let go of control, and that feels like stepping into darkness without knowing if there is ground beneath your feet. So you retreat. You return to what you know. You choose the argument over the conversation, the silence over the confession, the distraction over the truth. You say, "This is just who I am." But that is another lie, because who you are is not the same as what you repeat, and repetition is the essence of self-destruction. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It hides in the small decisions, the delayed response, the missed opportunity, the unnecessary conflict, the quiet withdrawal. It is built in moments so ordinary that you barely notice them. You tell yourself you'll try tomorrow. You tell yourself it's not the right time. You tell yourself you need to feel ready. But readiness never comes, because readiness is not a feeling. It is a decision. And decisions require something you are avoiding. Commitment. Not to success, not to happiness, but to uncertainty. To the possibility that you might fail and still be responsible. To the possibility that you might succeed and have no one to blame for what comes next. There is a strange comfort in failure. Failure justifies your fears. It confirms your doubts. It allows you to say, "I knew it wouldn't work." And in that moment, you are safe again. Safe inside your own limitations. Safe inside your own narrative. Safe inside the prison you have learned to decorate. But there is a deeper layer, a more unsettling truth. You don't just tolerate your suffering. You seek it. Not consciously, not deliberately, but through patterns so ingrained that they feel like instinct. You choose the wrong people. You delay the right decisions. You undermine your own progress. And when things fall apart, you feel something unexpected. Relief. Because now, the tension is resolved. Now, the uncertainty is gone. Now, the outcome matches the expectation you have carried all along. This is the hidden logic of self-destruction. It is not irrational. It is deeply, disturbingly consistent. You act in ways that confirm what you already believe about yourself. And if you believe, even quietly, that you are not enough, that you are flawed, that you are destined to fail, then you will find ways to make that belief real, not because you want to suffer, but because you want to be right. Because being right feels like control, even if what you are right about is your own misery. Dostoevsky's underground man clings to his suffering because it is the only thing he can fully claim as his own. It is his rebellion, his proof of existence, his way of saying, I am not a machine. I am not predictable. I choose, even if what I choose destroys me. And you do the same. You reject what is good for you, not always, not obviously, but enough to maintain a sense of autonomy. You say, I could change if I wanted to, but you don't. Because as long as you don't try fully, you never have to face the possibility that even your best effort might not be enough. And that is the deepest fear.
Not failure, but inadequacy. Not losing, but discovering that you are never capable of winning in the first place. So you avoid the test. You stay in the preparation phase, the planning phase, the imagining phase, anywhere but the moment of truth. Because the moment of truth is irreversible. It forces a confrontation you cannot escape, and so you remain suspended, not moving forward, not moving back, just circling, repeating, gradually, quietly dismantling your own life while convincing yourself that you are still searching for the right path. But there is another contradiction. Even as you destroy, you long. Even as you sabotage, you hope. You imagine a different version of your life, a version where things work, where you are stable, where you are at peace. You see it clearly. You feel it. And yet, when you approach it, you pull away, as if touching it would burn you. Because that version of your life requires a version of you that you are not sure you can become. And so, you retreat into the identity you already understand. The flawed one, the struggling one, the one who almost changes, but never quite does. Because almost is safe. Almost preserves possibility without demanding transformation. Almost allows you to say, I could have been more, without ever having to prove it. This is the quiet tragedy. Not that you fail, but that you never fully try. Not that you suffer, but that you choose the kind of suffering that keeps you exactly where you are. Dostoevsky did not offer solutions to this. He did not promise redemption. He simply revealed the mechanism. He showed that within you there is not just a desire for happiness, but a resistance to it. A resistance rooted in pride, fear, identity, and the strange comfort of familiarity. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You begin to notice the patterns, the hesitation before action, the doubt before commitment. The subtle ways you undermine yourself just enough to stay consistent with who you believe you are. You begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. I'll do it later. It's not the right time. What if it doesn't work? And beneath those thoughts, something quieter, something more honest. What if it does? Because if it does, everything changes. And change is not just external. It is internal. It reshapes your identity. It removes the excuses you have relied on. It forces you to become someone you do not yet recognize. And that is terrifying. So you resist. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. And consistency is what defines you. Not your intentions, not your desires, not your dreams, but your patterns. And your patterns, if you are honest, are not accidental. They are chosen, repeated, maintained, even when they hurt you, especially when they hurt you. Because pain, at least, is certain. And certainty, even when it is painful, feels safer than the unknown. So you continue.
You tell yourself you will change. You tell yourself you are working on it. You tell yourself this time will be different. But deep down, there is a question you avoid. A question that does not accuse, does not judge, but simply waits. Do you actually want to stop? Not the idea of stopping, not the image of a better life, but the actual, irreversible, uncomfortable process of becoming someone else. Because that is what it requires. Not improvement, not adjustment. Transformation. And transformation is not gentle. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for you to feel ready. It demands that you step into uncertainty without guarantees. And that is where you hesitate. That is where the pattern repeats. That is where self-destruction quietly resumes its work. Not as an enemy, but as a companion you have learned to trust. A companion that tells you, stay where you are, it's safer here. And you listen, because part of you believes it.
Part of you prefers the familiar misery to the unfamiliar possibility. Part of you is not ready to let go. And so, the cycle continues. Not because you are broken, but because you are divided. Pulled between what you want and what you fear. Between who you could become and who you have learned to be. And in that tension, in that quiet, relentless contradiction, your life unfolds. Not as a series of accidents, but as a pattern you participate in. And the most unsettling realization of all is this: if you are the one creating the pattern, then you are also the one sustaining it. And if you are the one sustaining it, then the question is no longer why it happens. The question is far more uncomfortable. Why do you allow it to continue? And deeper still, what part of you does not want it to stop?